Welcome, seeker of truth. You feel it, don't you? The weight in your spirit, the silent erosion of your fire. The world around you screams with distractions, but your soul whispers, something is wrong. When the soul sleeps, the enemy builds his kingdom within it. There comes a time when the chosen must confront the shadows, not in fear, but with the fire of revelation. If you felt the emptiness creeping in, the hunger for something real, this is your wake-up call. Before it's too late, before you lose what was never meant to be lost, here's what must be done. And before we dive in, make sure to subscribe. This is not just another channel. This is a place where the called awaken. Your words are spoken, but they have no weight. Your prayers rise, but they feel empty. This is not normal. It is the sign of a heart disconnected from divine power. Prayer is not about the words you say, but about the power that flows through them. When your prayers become mechanical, something is missing. It means the life source has been severed. The chosen do not pray to go through the motions. They pray to shake the heavens and to wage war in the spirit. But when prayer turns into mere repetition, it is no longer a weapon. It is a ritual void of fire. Think back to the days when your prayers carried weight, when you whispered a name and heaven moved, when you prayed in the secret place and you felt the presence of God so thick that time lost its grip. Where did that go? It did not fade on its own. It was stolen. Prayer is spiritual breath. When it becomes hollow, it means something is wrapped around your soul and is suffocating it. But what is this force? It is the slow poisoning of distraction, doubt, and spiritual fatigue. The enemy does not need to silence your prayers completely. He only needs to make them powerless. When a warrior's weapon is dulled, he does not stop fighting. He sharpens it. That is what must happen now. Your prayers must be reignited. But how? The answer is not in trying harder. It is in surrendering deeper. Prayer is not about effort. It is about connection. If your connection to the source is weak, your prayers will be weak. The first step is identifying what has numbed your prayers. Have you allowed distractions to fill the sacred space? Have you replaced communion with entertainment? Have you stopped believing that your prayers change things? Many think that spiritual dryness is just a phase, something that comes and goes. But dryness is not a phase. It is a warning. It is a sign that something has entered your spiritual atmosphere and is draining you. The enemy does not attack randomly. He is strategic. He knows that if he can weaken your prayers, he can weaken your defenses. A powerless prayer life is an open door to spiritual attack. If your prayers no longer have authority, you must ask yourself, what have I allowed to take its place? One of the greatest deceptions is that routine prayers are enough, that going through the motions is enough. But the chosen do not survive on routine. They thrive on fire. And that fire is only sustained through real, raw, desperate prayer. Look at the great warriors of faith throughout history. They were not casual about their prayer lives. They did not treat prayer as an obligation. They treated it as a battleground. They knew that every breakthrough was birthed in prayer. Every deliverance was secured in prayer. Every revival began with a cry to heaven. So what is the solution? The first step is to break the habit of mechanical prayer. Stop reciting words that have no meaning. Start praying with urgency. When you pray, picture the spiritual reality. Imagine heaven's armies moving at your command. Speak with authority. Stop asking timidly. Declare. Stop repeating words without thought. Speak as if you are standing before the throne of God. Your prayers are not just words, they are weapons. When spoken in faith, they cut through darkness. The second step is to remove distractions. The enemy will always fight to keep you from deep prayer. He will use busyness, entertainment, even good things to keep you from the best thing. If your mind is too full, your spirit will be too empty. Clear space. Make room. Let silence invade so that heaven's voice can be heard. The third step is to return to prayer as an act of war. Understand this. You are not just saying words. You are shifting atmospheres. You are tearing down strongholds. You are calling things into existence. If your prayers are not moving things, it is because you have stopped praying with power. Restore the fire by praying until something shifts. The chosen do not stop at surface-level prayers. They press in. They war. They do not let go until heaven answers. If your prayers have been hollow, it is not too late. The breath of God can fill them again, but you must choose to revive them. Do not wait for the fire to return on its own. Ignite it. Speak. Declare. Pray as if your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. What are you feeding your spirit? If your mind is full of noise, but your soul is starving for truth, you will wither. Many do not realize that their spiritual state is a direct reflection of what they consume. Just as the body weakens when deprived of nutrients, the soul weakens when it is not nourished with the right substance. The world offers endless distractions, entertainment, endless scrolling, conversations that lead nowhere, but none of it satisfies. These things may fill time, but they do not fill the soul. Imagine someone who eats nothing but empty calories, processed foods with no nutrients. They may feel full for a moment, but in time, their body will break down. Weakness, fatigue, disease, these are the consequences of malnutrition. The same is true in the spiritual realm. Many feel drained, distant, and powerless, but they do not realize that the cause is their spiritual diet. They have been feeding their minds with meaningless content, and they wonder why their spirit has no strength. The chosen are called to a different kind of nourishment. They do not survive on what the world offers. Their sustenance is the Word. Their strength is the presence of God. But when the diet of heaven is replaced with the diet of the world, the soul begins to decay. The symptoms appear subtly at first. Prayers become weak, conviction fades, faith turns into doubt. It does not happen overnight. It happens in small choices, in gradual compromises. This is how the enemy works. He does not attack with obvious destruction. He infiltrates through subtle substitutions. Instead of seeking wisdom, you seek opinions. Instead of reading the Word, you consume endless news and media. Instead of spending time in the presence of God, you spend hours absorbing distractions. And the result? A starved spirit. A soul that is alive but barely breathing. The question is, what are you allowing into your mind? Every piece of content, every conversation, every piece of information you absorb is either feeding your spirit or draining it. You cannot consume the world all day and expect to walk in divine power. It is impossible. If your intake is earthly, your output will be weak. If your mind is filled with human wisdom, your spirit will lack supernatural strength. The solution is radical. You must change your diet. You must become intentional about what you allow into your soul. This is not about legalism. It is about survival. The enemy has flooded the world with distractions designed to drain your spirit. The chosen must guard themselves. The chosen must know when to disconnect from the noise and reconnect with the source. Start with the Word. It is not just a book. It is spiritual food. If you are weak, it is because you are not feeding yourself with truth. Many say they do not understand the Bible, so they avoid it. But hunger is not about understanding. It is about consuming. Eat first. Revelation will come later. Do not wait until you feel like it. Just as your body needs food, your soul needs the Word. Even when it feels dry, even when it feels like nothing is happening, keep eating. The nutrients are working, even if you do not feel it instantly. Then evaluate what is stealing your hunger. Entertainment, endless social media, negative conversations. If something is dulling your desire for God, it must go. The enemy wants you spiritually numb so that you do not even realize you are starving. He wants you so distracted that you do not even feel your own hunger. But when you silence the noise, when you cut off the distractions, the hunger will return. The chosen are not casual about what they consume. They are aware that everything entering their mind is shaping their spirit. They do not allow anything to enter unchecked. They filter everything through the lens of truth. If it does not build them up, if it does not draw them closer to God, they reject it. This is not about isolation. It is about discernment. The chosen are in the world, but they are not of it. They know that what they feed will grow. If they feed their spirit, faith will grow. If they feed their flesh, doubt will grow. So what are you feeding? What is growing in you? If you feel distant from God, if you feel empty, the first step is to examine your intake. Change your diet, and you will change your spirit. The fire will return when it is fueled by the right substance. The hunger will increase when it is no longer dulled by distractions. This is the call. Return to what truly nourishes you. Feed your soul with truth, and your spirit will come alive again. Once, you felt the fire. You knew right from wrong in your bones. Now, the lines blur, and compromise no longer disturbs you. This is the mark of a soul under siege. The enemy does not come with obvious destruction. He comes with subtle erosion. What used to feel wrong now feels normal. What used to stir your spirit now barely registers. Conviction, the inner voice that once guided you, is growing silent. This is not a small issue. It is a red flag. Conviction is not condemnation. Condemnation is the voice of the enemy, telling you that you are too far gone. Conviction is the voice of the Spirit, calling you back before it is too late. When conviction fades, it means that the distance between you and God is growing. It means that your heart is becoming desensitized. It means that what once hurt you no longer does. This is not a random occurrence. It is a carefully crafted plan. The enemy knows that the easiest way to destroy a chosen one is not to attack them directly. It is to numb them gradually. How does this happen? It happens when small compromises go unchecked. The enemy does not tempt you with destruction. He tempts you with comfort. He whispers, "It's not that bad." He convinces you that what was once unacceptable is now tolerable. He uses the voices around you to normalize what once felt wrong. And as you accept small compromises, your heart hardens. You no longer feel the weight of things that once troubled you. And one day, you wake up and you do not feel anything at all. Spiritual numbness is not just a phase. It is a warning sign. A heart that no longer feels conviction is a heart drifting into dangerous territory. The chosen are called to be set apart. They are called to live differently. But when conviction fades, The difference between the chosen and the world disappears. The fire that once burned bright becomes a faint flicker. The passion that once drove you turns into passive acceptance. And if nothing changes, the light will go out completely. So how do you restore conviction? How do you reignite the fire that has dimmed? The first step is recognizing that you need to. Many do not even realize they have grown cold because numbness deceives you into thinking you are fine, but you are not fine. If you do not feel conviction, if you no longer sense urgency, if compromise no longer disturbs you, this is not peace. This is deception. Wake up. Shake yourself. You were never meant to live comfortably in compromise. The next step is to remove whatever has desensitized you. What have you allowed into your life that has dulled your spirit? It may be entertainment, it may be relationships, it may be distractions. It does not matter what it is. If it is robbing you of conviction, it is robbing you of your calling. The enemy does not fear a believer who has lost their fire. He knows they are no threat to him. But when a chosen one wakes up, when they throw off what has numbed them, when they return to the intensity of the Spirit, that is when the enemy trembles. Conviction is not meant to make you feel guilty. It is meant to keep you alive. It is the alarm that saves you from destruction. If you feel the stirring in your spirit now, do not ignore it. Do not silence it. Run toward it. The chosen do not wait until they are completely lost to turn back. They recognize the warning signs and take action before it is too late. If your conviction has faded, it can be restored, but you must be willing to fight for it. You must be willing to let go of what is dulling your spirit. You must be willing to return to the fire. And when you do, you will feel it again, the weight of truth, the clarity of right and wrong, the urgency of the call. Your heart will come alive again. The chosen are not meant to live numb. They are meant to burn. The greatest prison has no bars. It is a life of comfort that kills your purpose. The enemy does not always come to destroy. Sometimes he comes to lull you into a slow, peaceful slumber where your calling dies in silence. If your faith does not cost you anything, it is already dying. The chosen are refined in fire, not in comfort. They do not seek safety. They seek transformation. But many have unknowingly stepped into a comfortable cage, thinking they are free when, in reality, they have become prisoners to a life of ease. Comfort is deceptive. It tells you that as long as things are stable, as long as there is no struggle, you are in a good place. But what if the absence of struggle is actually a sign that you are no longer a threat to the enemy? What if the reason you feel no resistance is because you have stopped advancing? The chosen were never meant to live in passive faith. They were meant to live in pursuit of the presence of God, pursuit of holiness, pursuit of purpose. The moment you stop pressing forward, you begin to drift. And drifting always leads away from the fire. The comfortable cage is built in layers. It starts with small compromises, choosing convenience over conviction, choosing the easy path instead of the right one. Then it grows into a lifestyle where faith is no longer an active force, but a passive belief. You attend services, you speak the right words, but deep inside, you know the fire has dimmed. You no longer take risks in faith. You no longer step out of your comfort zone. You live a life that is spiritually safe and spiritually powerless. But here is the truth. The chosen were never meant to live safe lives. They were meant to live surrendered lives. The great men and women of faith throughout history were never comfortable. They faced opposition, persecution, and trials, but they also carried power. They lived with urgency. They did not settle into a life of ease because they knew that comfort is the enemy of calling. The moment you stop challenging yourself, the moment you stop stepping into the unknown, is the moment your faith begins to wither. How do you escape the comfortable cage? The first step is recognizing that you are in one. Many do not even realize that they have settled. They assume that because they are not struggling, they are in God's will. But the absence of struggle does not mean the presence of purpose. The chosen are called to advance, to push forward, to take ground. If you are not moving, you are not growing. The second step is to disrupt your own comfort. Choose to do something that challenges your faith. Step into something that requires God's power to sustain you. This could be fasting, praying for longer than you ever have, stepping into ministry, sharing your faith boldly, or simply asking God what He wants you to do next. The key is to break the cycle of passivity. The third step is to embrace refinement. The chosen are not refined in comfort. They are refined in fire. When you start stepping out of the cage, opposition will come. Resistance will rise. But do not fear it. This is the proof that you are moving in the right direction. Fire does not destroy the chosen. It purifies them. The trials that come against you will not break you. They will strengthen you. The time is now. Do not waste another moment living in the illusion of safety. The enemy wants you passive, quiet, and ineffective. But you were never meant to live that way. The fire is still inside you. Stir it up. Step into the unknown. Walk boldly. The chosen do not live to blend in. They live to set the world on fire. If you have made it this far, it means the battle for your soul is real. But here's the truth. If your soul were not valuable, the enemy wouldn't fight for it. The chosen do not live safe lives. They live surrendered lives. You are not here by accident. The fire is still inside you. Stir it up. The time is short. The call is now. Will you answer? Before you go, make sure to subscribe. This is not just a video. It is a call to the ones who were never meant to blend in. Stay vigilant, stay burning, stay chosen.